The NDP become more desperate to stop the non-confidence motion put forward by Pierre Poilievre based on the words of the head of the NDP, Jagmeet Singh. And they try to pull a couple of tricks to get the motion stopped. Welcome to the Canadian Shield. My name is Sterling. I'm your host. On Thursday, the Conservatives were introducing their motion based on the words of Jagmeet Singh. And of course, the NDP is losing their minds because they have no idea how to stop this. They can't both support Justin Trudeau and make those words be true. And this will lay bare that the NDP is not trying to bring an election, that they are not trying to protect Canadians, that they are not trying to remove the burdens that Canadians are living under. They want to run around talking about, GST, which we all know amounts to very little money. And most of the GST was already off of the products that they're discussing. Anyway, that's a different video, and I will get to that. In this one, I want to point to some of the tricks that the NDP is trying to use, both parliamentarily and among the voting population. So first thing on Thursday, they introduced a concurrence motion, because the report came out of the Standing Committee on Women, and they are now, of course, the NDP, because they're getting desperate. As I told you, the closer we get to the time, the more the far left will start screaming about women's autonomy. Not because women's autonomy is under threat, but because the people who vote without thinking will hear those words put together and just all of a sudden give them their vote, which is, of course, how we end up with the Liberal NDP party in the first place, the fiasco that is brought down around us. There's nowhere in Canada where women's that kind of autonomy is under threat. I've done a couple of videos on it. However, what you want to see here is how the NDP is quite willing to make it seem like it's so important they got to stop everything else in Parliament and talk about it for 3 hours so that the bill can be approved and stamped and sent right through, right? Based on the report, they want to turn that into a bill, and that's what the concurrence motion is the desire to take everything, not really talk about it for more than 3 hours, vote, and then pass it on. Of course, the idea being that Pierre Poilievre's Conservatives wouldn't have the ability to introduce the motion of non-confidence.
Speaker, I'm pleased to rise today to discuss my concurrence motion on the report of the Standing Committee on Foreign Affairs and International Development on Canada's approach to sexual and reproductive health and rights. This was an important report that made 14 recommendations to the Government of Canada's work to promote and to fund sexual and reproductive health and rights globally. And I want to thank all of the witnesses that came before our committee to provide us with their expertise and their important information. And this report comes at a crucial time when we are witnessing globally terrifying backsliding on women's rights. We're living through a coordinated global backlash against sexual and reproductive rights for women, and we are seeing a global rise in authoritarianism. We are also seeing real barriers to access to reproductive and sexual health care here in Canada, and this is unacceptable. Because, Madam Speaker, women's health care is a right, and women's lives matter.
Let me start by saying it was a boo-boo. I guess it wasn't the Women's Standing Committee on Women, it's the Standing Committee on Foreign Affairs, which sort of broadens the scope of the report, I guess. I don't know how she feels that in one breath that we all have to get along, but on the other hand, Canada should be forcing its ideals onto other places in the world. I think perhaps she should just go to those places and maybe put up a couple of picket signs or do what it is, organize a parade maybe, or a protest, instead of trying to get Canada to overstep its national sovereignty and push its ideals onto other countries, other peoples. Of course, we see based on what she said now, right? Oh, women's lives matter. And, I have some opinions on the issue that I will get into in a different video. This video is about, this is just a tactic, right? Designed to scare you into trying to understand why the Conservatives didn't allow this concurrent motion to go forward, or why they voted against it, or any of that kind of thing. It's just a fear tactic that the NDP is trying to hope will do two things. One, they hope that they'll be able to trick you into voting for them, just like they did in Manitoba when they said they were tearing up the confidence agreement, which they never really did, because that's what this is about, trying to stop the motion to the non-confidence motion, the non-confidence vote. she uses a few key words and then tries to invoke the image of the now disgraced BLM, because we know that the people that were in charge of BLM didn't give any money to those people. They get, they're corrupt and they're bankrupt and all of these kinds of things. I just wanted to show you how she was hoping that this would run through the clock, right? Take you up to the time when they wouldn't be able to put forward the motion, because there was all of a sudden an emergency for the concurrence motion to be put into the floor. That's how desperate they are to stop people from realizing that Jagmeet Singh has said all of those things. And now on Monday, when he goes in and makes a vote, he's either going to cast his vote and prove that that he meant everything he said and force an election, or he's going to go against everything that he says and keep Justin Trudeau and the NDP Liberals in power, crushing the very economy, destroying the lives of Canadians. All the while, he's going to hope that you don't look at that and just say, oh, look, 5% off your beer. The concurrence motion didn't work. The Conservatives stood up and just said they're trying to stall. The Liberals stood up and apologized for all kinds of stupidness and then made comments, but it didn't run out enough of the clock. As a result, NDP had to pull out another trick. I'm going to let you hear this desperate attempt, a little bit of it, not the entire thing, because she was rambling on. I will just let you hear some of the things that she says, which I find to be both good for you to hear and quite telltale.
Now we go to requests for emergency debates. Je désire informer la Chambre que j'ai...
I wish to inform the House that I have received notice of a request for an emergency debate. I invite the Honourable Member for Edmonton Strathcona to rise and make a brief intervention.
Honourable Member for Edmonton Strathcona.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I am proposing an emergency debate tonight based on the report that came out yesterday from Amnesty International concluding that Israel has committed genocide in Gaza. This finding of genocide from the world's most respected human rights organization has immediate implications for the Government of Canada and for every single member of Parliament. In short, Canada must change course immediately given such a conclusion, or this government may be found complicit in genocide by the International Court of Justice. This has serious implications for Canada's reputation internationally and for Canada's adherence to international law. It also requires that Canada do much more to end the genocide in Gaza and to withdraw its political and military support for Israel.
I mean, she said so many things in there that it's hard to know where to begin to unpack it. I will start by saying there is no international bodies that are any more respected, because they have all been corrupted from all of this stuff that they've been doing, whether it be the IMF, the ICC, the Amnesty International. It doesn't matter who they are. I mean, I guess maybe Doctors Without Borders is okay, but the rest of them have all been corrupted, just like they corrupt these human rights tribunals. There's nowhere that they haven't tried to put in this negative far left influence, and then they run around and say, oh, look, respect us and respect us. Now, I don't that you don't respect them. I know that Amnesty International should be worried about what's going on in many other countries rather than sticking their nose in a fight that's been going on for hundreds or even thousands of years. But they just want to take politicians like this, MP McPherson, and try to scare you. MP McPherson, who's always talking about how much she hates Israel. I mean, she's constantly talking about how we have to do something to stop Israel. She's constantly demanding that the government do something. She talks more about Israel than she does about Alberta, where she's from. I mean, it's quite strange, her fixation with that conflict, when there are other more horrible conflicts that are transpiring every single day that she doesn't talk about at all. She never mentions the situations in Afghanistan. She stands up on the one hand, talks about women's rights, then on the other hand, talks about an unjust war, what she feels to be an unjust war, and ignores Afghanistan all the whole time. And that's just the one off the top of my head. I don't want to go too far that way. I just want to show you how desperate the NDP is to try and stop this motion, right? Oh, it's an emergency debate now. Now we're going to stop everything what we're doing and debate this issue of Amnesty International releasing a report about a conflict that they don't have any business sticking their nose in, and how she feels that our reputation is going to be ruined internationally, like Justin Trudeau didn't ruin our reputation internationally already. That there's nothing that we can do that'll make it worse based on already having Justin Trudeau and Jagmeet Singh, the way that they have destroyed our reputation. We got our foreign affairs minister appearing on the front of newspapers in photo shoots talking about how she might want to take over the party. Clown show. I think the point that I'm trying to make, that I'm hoping to bring home to you, is that they are obviously afraid of this motion, and they were trying everything to stop having to take out the time, therefore not allow Pierre Poilievre to introduce the motion, which he successfully did, and we'll have a vote for it on Monday. I don't know what tricks they're going to hope to pull between now and then. This emergency motion was not approved by the chair, and right after that, Pierre Poilievre was able to introduce his motion. In the middle, though, the NDP has tried now to derail this motion, because we know that it's going to destroy their party. It makes them look horrible. The only way that they can survive it is to vote in favor of the motion, which means, of course, that they'll have to call an election in their regions. And because they have been doing so terribly to their voting population, they're probably not going to get that many seats. I will say that MP McPherson is not the kind of person that should be leading anything. I suppose that holds true for Jagmeet Singh as well. All right, I'm going to wrap here. I want to thank you for listening. I'll talk to you next time.